First of all, thank you to Jesse for making a cultural paradigm shift for our community, young and old, mostly young, but more and more so the older generations as well. Torah study has become more tamid, more regular, more part of your daily life, and through Tanakh study and now Mishnah study, I believe people are spending more time on task with not 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, and I have to thank Jesse for that. He has done maybe more than all the rabbis in order to get people to study regular Torah on a regular basis with the ease of technology. So thank you. I also want to thank Hathaway Synagogue and all the rabbis, Rabbi Farhi, and all of the people who make Hathaway run, Mr. Joe Carey, for housing the Tanakh study program today. And I want to thank the SCA, which I am an employee of, and I run all the programs during the week. So this is a little bit of a shift. Normally I'm setting up the table for the person who's speaking, and now that I'm doing the speaking. Also, in 3 weeks from now, I will be doing a lot of work with Bobby Dweck, preparing for Tisha B'Av, and I invite all of you to come. We will have over 40 lecturers for all ages from 3rd grade and on up to however high you can count. So please, I would love to teach then, but I can't, I'm too busy, so I'm taking the opportunity that Jesse gave me and teaching now. What we are going to do, the title of the class is called Stumbling Through the Darkness. And we are going to study a Perek of Tanakh with an introduction by the Ramchal and Mesilat Yesharim. But I want to, maybe more important than any of the content that we're going to study together today, is what is our way in to the text. There's a big mahloket in Israel now, how you read biblical text, how do you read the Torah. And it's a mahloket. I'm not going to talk all about the mahloket, but I'm telling you that when we read biblical text, our job is to find out how the message of that text transforms me. Anytime you sit down with the Tanakh, how is this pasuk, perek, sefer, milah, how is it transforming your life? The other side of the machloket is something I don't agree with, is what you can bring in to make the text newer. That's not my approach. Today's way the approach is we're going to read something together and we're going to see, is this going to transform me? Now let's remember, we're sitting here, Yud Zayin with Tammuz. We are mourning over 5 tragic things. Right? One of them is the burning of the Torah. The other one is that there was a Salem that was brought into the Beit HaMikdash. The Korban HaTamid was canceled, never again to be performed regularly. We have a lot of things that happen to us today. And we want to see and ask ourselves a question. Why did this happen so long ago? What could have stopped it? Why didn't it stop? Why did it lead to the destruction? Why did it lead to Hurban Beit HaMikdash? And how can we learn from the story that we're going to read today to our lives? But before we begin the biblical text, I want to start with the words of the Ramchal. And the title of the class is called Stumbling Through Darkness. Darkness in the Nabi is symbolic for confusion. Darkness in Navi is symbolic for fear, for angst, for a sense of loss. Darkness represents the opposite of light, to live in enlightened life. So when we think about darkness, the reason why I called this, the title of the class, Stumbling Through Darkness, because I feel that when Yesha'yahu was speaking so long ago, the Jewish people were in a state of darkness. And our goal here in the next 40 minutes is to figure out why. What's the reason for the darkness? And I'm so happy that I have students here that maybe studied Yesha'yahu with me many, many, many years ago. I was sitting in the basement last week and I hear Michael Franco reading Yesha'yahu as if I was teaching it. And it was it made me so happy to see that when I teach students, they continue to teach their students. So I want to read you, turn to the Ramchal, side of the page. Mesilat Yesharim Ramchal. He says, Tashet Hoshech Bihi Laila. Darkness came and it became night. And the Ramchal, quoting from Baba Metzi'ah, says, Ze ha'olam hazeh shedomeh lelayla. That this pasuk, talking about darkness, is is speaking about Olam Hazeh that's similar to night. Now, I'm not a fire and brimstone type of guy, but if it's a fast day, I'm going to utilize that technique. Listen to what he says. Haven kama nifla ha'ma'amar ha'amiti hazeh lemi shema'asik lehavim bo. Look at this pasuk, this limud of the Torah, of the Talmud, and see how deep it is. Ki hineh hoshech halayla sheneh minei ta'uyot. There's two mistakes that a person can make in the darkness of night. Number one, o yechaseh et ha'ayin ad shelo yireh ma shelefanav klal. Darkness could either be so dark, you could have the type of darkness like what maybe was at the time of with the Egyptians in Mitzrayim, that darkness will literally blind you. Number two, o sheyat'eh oto ad sheyireh lo amud ki'ilu hu adam. Darkness maybe not completely blind you, but could it cause you to make a mistake? Simply, you'd think that a pillar is a person or a person is a pillar. When we speak about darkness, we're not talking about the visual acuity of a person. Everybody, I'm wearing glasses, I have a -10, and I use lenses in order to correct my ability of my eyes to perceive reality. But when the Hachamim use darkness, they're not talking about sight. They're talking about something much more deep. And Mesilat Yesharim says, how does a person recognize that they're in darkness? Why do they have darkness? It says, Ken humriyot v'gashmiyut ha'olam hazeh. The fact that we are physical beings and we live in a physical world, hinehu hoshech halayla le'en hasechel v'gorem lo sheteh ta'uyot. The fact that we are human beings living in culture that changes from year to year, from country to country according to the geography, is the reason why we are in this hoshech. Ha'ahat. One type of blindness, eno maniach lo shireh ha'mechsholot shebederkei ha'olam. One type of cultural blindness is you don't even see the obstacles that are before you. And you're walking along your way. And you're living your life. And you're having children. And you're going to school. And you have a career. And the ignorant people don't even see the obstacles that are right before them. They're such simpletons, Mesilat Yesharim says, that they are destroyed, yet they have no idea of the pitfall beforehand, so they have no fear of it in advance. They can't even prevent themselves because they had no ability to see that it was a problem in the first place. Pasuk says, Derech resha'im ka'afilah, the way of the bad people are like fog. Lo yadeu b'mei kashelu. They have no idea what they're even tripping up on. They have no idea that what they're doing in life, that the life that they're leading is problematic. Number two, ta'ut hasheni. V'hu kashem el harishon. The second mistake that you make in darkness is worse than the first. Hu shemat'er iyatam. It tricks the person who's looking ad sheroim hara ke'ilu hu mamash tov. It tricks the person to think that something really is true when it is not true. V'hatov ke'ilu hu ra. Or something is good when it's bad, or something that's bad that is good. What's worse? What's worse, the first problem or the second problem? Person who lives in a state of darkness and is making mistakes has no idea that they're really mistakes, or a person who allows his sense of perception to be skewed by competing values. What's worse? Sick, right. The second one, Mesilat Yesharim would say, is much worse.
The second one is more knowledgeable than the first.
That's right. So if we want to categorize the first mistake, I would call it ignorance. If you want to categorize the second mistake, I would call it negligence. Why are you negligent? Because you're not taking the time to investigate the time-tested ways to live a happy, secure life. Ignorance versus negligence. Question is, when we turn to Yesha'yahu 2,000 years ago, what type of darkness were those people in? Were they ignorant or were they negligent? What do you think? You think what? Negligent. Why, Celeste?
They knew the Torah, they had Hashem in front of them all the time, and they just kept bypassing the warnings. They were being warned from God, from the Nevi'im, and they kept bypassing it and just ignoring it.
So, they would go to the town center, the Nabi would stand on his soapbox, give a nibu'ah. They had the opportunity to listen, but they did not. Excellent. Does anybody think that they were ignorant? Yeah.
They probably didn't really have a knowledge about God and monotheism, so they might have been ignorant.
What do you mean they didn't have? What kind of knowledge didn't? For sure, they didn't have in times of Yesha'yahu the Talmud. They didn't have the Mishnah.
They probably didn't believe in one God even yet, maybe.
I think maybe what you're trying to say is that maybe their understanding of monotheism is not what we have today, but it was at the beginning stages of formalizing. Okay, interesting. Yes?
I was going to say something similar. I feel like in those days, not everybody was so literate, and in our 21st century perspective, we think of everybody having a certain level of education, but in those days, I think the population was very different, and even though there were probably some people making the second mistake, there were probably a very sizable amount of people also making the first, meaning they just were not so educated.
Right. But it doesn't really explain God's anger in response to the fact that they did not listen. So whether you say, like Celeste says, that they were negligent, or what you say, whether they're ignorant, I'm not sure either makes a difference when it comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? Saying to the people, you're not listening to my Nebi'im. Sam?
It's also people versus leadership. Say the people may have been ignorant, but the leadership was negligent.
Okay, so you're putting the onus of responsibility onto the leadership.
I mean, that's...
You're saying even more so. You're saying even if the people were ignorant because they were not lettered, and they didn't go to illustrious schools like the Rosh Yeshiva sitting on the dais before. I wasn't there. But at least the leadership, we could say that the onus is upon the leadership to educate the masses. So Sam has read through Tanakh several times already, and he knows that of course, HaKadosh Baruch Hu turns in anger to the leaders more often than not. And you're going to see here as well. So I want to tell you a story. Flip the page around. Really extraordinary story. I'm going to read it out. I'm going to act it out for you. Okay? It's Yesha'yahu Perek He. Some of my students learned it with me in school. Ashira na ledidi shirat dodi lekarmo. Yesha'yahu is dramatizing a story that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wrote about Bnei Israel. And the metaphor is that a farmer writes a song about the field or the vineyard that he worked with. Listen to this. There's a farmer. He buys a plot of land. Now, anytime I work on a project, it takes me 6 months dreaming about the project to actually work on it. I could tell you things that I built in my house, and it took me, if you know my backyard, it took me 6 months mentally planning just in order to get the wood up the way I wanted it. You can imagine that a farmer, before he sets out the business concept, he's thinking about it for a long time. He buys a plot of land. Now, in order to plant anything, the first process is to remove the stones. So the farmer says, Kerem hayal edidi bekeren ben shaman. I bought the choicest piece of land. Vayazekeu, vayisakeleu, vayitaehu sorek, vayiben migdal betocho. Because I took all the rocks, back-breaking, sweat-inducing work. Vayisakeleu, and I plowed it. Vayitaehu sorek, and I went out and I bought the best possible vine and I planted it. Vayiben migdal betocho, and I built a watchtower in order to make sure that the grapes that would grow in the vineyard would be taken care of. And not only did I do all this work of taking the stones out, of plowing it, of planting it, and building the watchtower, I had so much hope that something would come out of this that I hewed out a cistern in order to store the wine once I squashed the grapes. Now, this process is not overnight. 6 months to a year. Vaikav la'asot anavim. I hoped that it would produce grapes. Vayas be'ushim. But it produced spoiled grapes. He had a plan. He did the work. He put it in his time. He did everything possible within his physical capabilities, and it turned out wrong. What would you do? What would you tell your kids to do if you have kids? What would you tell your kids to do? Try again, right? Try again. So it seems to be that this was not the first time the farmer did this, right? Sometimes crops have yield, sometimes they don't have yield. The farmer says the following. Ba'ata Yoshev Yerushalayim v'ish Yehuda. The Navi turns to the people as if he's the farmer. And he says, Shiftuna beni uben kalmi. I want you to you people that are listening to this song, judge what I should do. You tell me what I should do with my farm. Ma la'asot od lekami. What can I do more to my vineyard? Velo asiti bo, that I didn't do. Madua kiviti la'asot anavim v'ya'as be'ushim. Why did I hope for this result and got something else? And then once again, the Navi, after dramatizing this in a metaphor in front of the people, Pasuk says, "Ve'ata odia na etchem et asher ani oseh lekarmi." I'm going to tell you what the farmer does to his vineyard. Haser mesukato. I'm going to take away the thorn bushes that are surrounding it, that's protected from wild animals, and it's going to be destroyed. Parot gedero. I'm going to destroy the fence. V'hayal le'menamas, and the people are going to come in and be able to walk all over the vineyard. V'ashiteu bata. And I'm going to leave it in order to be desolate. Lo yizamed, lo yi'ader, ve'ala shamir v'shait. I'm not going to prune it, I'm not going to weed it, and the thorns and thistles are going to grow. Ve'al ha'abim atzaveh, and I'm going to command the clouds. And here's we get a hint. We get a hint that we're not talking about a regular farmer, because regular farmers can't command the clouds. And the farmer says, I'm going to command the clouds, ve'al ha'abim atzaveh mehamtir alav matar, not to allow dew to fall. What's the nimshal? Kikerem Adonai Sevaot Bet Yisrael. Because the vineyard is the Jewish people. V'ish Yehuda netash ashuav. And the people of Yehuda are the vine that he planted. Vaikad mishpat. And he hoped for mishpat. What's the word mishpat mean?
Justice.
For justice. V'haya mispah. And there was destruction. Listaka. He hoped for sedek, for righteousness. And there were cries of the people who were poor, the orphan, and the destitute in the city. Famous story, famous metaphor about the relationship between God and the Jewish people. How much more does God have to do for us in order for us to realize it, reflect upon it, and change our lives and follow His word? I mean, I woke up this morning, I tell the kids all the time in school, how much did you pay for your eyesight? How much did you pay for your legs? Did you swipe a credit card in the morning before you said Modani? Thank you for walking around. What more does God have to do for us? Forget about it as a nation. Forget about it as a member of humanity. For me, human being, from Moses, Haber, what did I do to deserve everything that I have? And yet, I'm sure there are days when God looks down and says, Moses, Haber, I did everything for you. I gave you loving parents, loving family. I gave you education. I gave you a house. I gave you everything you need. You have a career. You have money. And this is the way you reflect back that appreciation. So now I'm taking the story, right, where I said my shita is when I read this, I go in and I see what is the story going to inspire me to do today? Okay? So we have this keren. God planted it, and yet it didn't yield what He expected. So a lot of times in Tanakh, you don't know exactly the reasons why the punishment happened. But here we do. Yesha'yahu delineates in very clear form what the people did bad in order to deserve final destruction. Remember, this is right before Huban Beit Rishon. Okay? And he lists 6 things that we're going to go through now that I believe are not only old problems. I believe they're very, very real, relevant, new problems. And you have to decide on your own whether this is going to transform you. Number 1. Each one of the 6 begin with the word hoy. And while I'm talking and explaining to you each one of these 6, I want you to ask yourself the question we asked in the beginning about darkness. They were stumbling in the darkness. Why? Was it because they were ignorant, or was it because they were negligent? Was it because of the leaders, or was it because of the parents? Was it because of the children taking the culture of the times and forcing the changes in society? Ask yourselves the question. Why are these problems occurring? Number 1. Hoy magi'e bait bebayit sadeh vesadeh yakribu. Whoa! You have to be very careful when you talk right now in the community with number 1. Very, very difficult. Some of you are smirking. I'm afraid to make certain statements because you're going to think I lie in a certain political sphere. But mind you that 2,500 years ago, there were no politics, liberal or conservative. Listen to this straight from Hashem through the Navi. Woe is to the person who builds his house, purchases the next door's house, and has them connect. Woe is to the person who expands his lot into the neighbor's lot, and then into the next neighbor's lot. Ad efes makom, until there is no room on your block or in your community for anybody unlike you. Vehoshavtem lebadechem bekerev az, and you reside alone. What is the problem that was happening? Was the homogenization of society according to your economic level. Yesha'yahu was upset about it. Yesha'yahu reflected back to the people and said, what are you going to be with if you're only hanging out with people exactly like you? Can you become a better person? Can you learn how to appreciate different perspectives in life if you're only hanging out day after day after day with people on your block and your economic level? Hoy! Society cannot be productive or progress if it's homogeneous. We believe in the value of integrating with people who are not like us, maybe who don't agree with us specifically, who are not of our economic level, who are not of our social status level. That is the value of being part of an am, of a nation. Woe is to the people who buy up all the land, and the poor people have to travel further and further and further to the center of town. I have this dream. Some of you know it. About purchasing something in Israel. It's a dream. It's a dream that's going to become a reality. I know it. If it costs $1, it will become a reality. But listen carefully. I investigated possibly buying something in Yerushalayim. What is the old city going to be like if only the people who buy land, who buy apartments in Yerushalayim are able to afford $2 million? And everybody beneath that has to go to another city. What is the society going to be like? Is that a healthy society? And I think the Navi is telling you here it's not. It's not a healthy society. So, in some countries, in some cities, in some states, they have a requirement. Again, this is not a political statement. They have a requirement that in every building, you allow certain units to be left for people of lower income. Why? Why? Is that just because we feel bad for them? I don't think so.
Supply.
What?
It's going to stunt supply.
It's going to
Stunt
supply. What do you mean by that?
Because then developers will say, I can't make as much money, so I won't build as much.
So the argument against the Navi over here is that we don't want to allow this to happen because the developers won't develop if they can't make money margins back on their investment. Agreed? The Navi says there's something more important than the margins. It's the human interrelations.
Communications.
Communication. Go to number 2. Hoy mashkime baboker shechar yirdofu. Woe is to the people who, when they wake up in the morning, they run after beer. This reminds me of the Supreme Court nomination hearing. Me'ahareb baneshef yaim yadikam. Woe is to the people who, in twilight, as it becomes dark, wine lights them up. Now, what's the problem with drinking? I love drinking. Should I say I like beer? I like beer. I like beer. No. What's wrong with it? I enjoy a drink. Is there a problem? Yeah?
I think it accomplishes exactly that second reason, the second state.
What is it called?
Deception.
Deception. That your perception, you allow your perception of reality to be dulled or dimmed or, what's the word? Distorted with the alcohol. Now, a person who drinks once in a while, but if a person wakes up in the morning and chases after a beer, and at night wine lights him up, what happens? And he has a party. But he has a party with the harp and the lute. What's the problem? Because you're so drunk, you don't look at God's creations, and you don't get to appreciate the creation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When you are addicted to a substance, a lot of people do it in order so they don't have to engage with reality. When a person does that, he's blinded from the beauty of the creation that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created for you. And if you do that day after day after day after day, what do you become? You become blind. What is more beautiful than to have your child come to play with you? To talk to the child about what they learned in school, or to have a catch is a little bit difficult for me, but what's more beautiful than sitting with your spouse and talking about some ideas that they have? What is more beautiful than going to work and earning a good living? Using the faculties that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you in order to make the world a better place. These people, and number two, waste away their lives, willfully ignorant. They lack mindfulness and they lack purpose. Joey Harari said it before. You want to respect other cultures, other minhagim, first respect your own. I would say this about yourself. You want to respect other people? First, learn your purpose. Everybody here has a tafkid. Everybody here has a yi'ud, has a specific destiny. Do you know what it is? Does it get you out of bed in the morning? So I assume that everybody here is above, I think, 25. For kids, one of the things that really, I'm with a lot of children, and a child who thinks they know what their purpose is so much more driven in school. So much more driven when they go and they leave school, when they're in with their families. The sooner a child recognizes, even if that's wrong, by the way, even if they think they're going to be an astronaut, doesn't matter. If there is a purpose to that child's life and it doesn't waste it away on nothingness, that child is going to be better. Number three. Hoy moshche ha'avon behablesh hashav ka'avot ha'agala hata'a. Woe is to the people who are connected to their sins with a thin rope, and later on, ka'avot ha'agala hata'a, and when that avon becomes a het, they don't need a thin rope to be connected to it. They thicken and braid the rope so that when they're tracking it around behind them, they thicken the rope with habit and repetition in order to make sure that that sin is part of their life. What was to those people? Why? Ha'omrim. Because they're forced to say, Yemaher yahisha ma'asehu le'ma'an ne'eh. Because they're skeptical about God's plan. What was the person who is so deep and the repetitive bad behaviors and the bad ways of thinking and the negativity and the lashon hara, woe is to that person, because that person is going to be so deep in their sin that they're going to turn around and say to God, you know what? Bring it on. Let me see it. Let me see whether the beracha and the kelala that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives in Sefer Devarim is really true. I don't see it right now. I don't see a direct connection between cause and effect. So therefore, if I don't see a cause and effect, maybe it's not true. That's skepticism, ladies and gentlemen. It's not because you want to be that way. It's because you want to keep to your original habit. And so therefore, change is difficult. And if change is difficult, then you're going to force yourself, right, psychologically, to be skeptical of the promises of the creator of the universe. Number 4. Hoy ha'omrim l'ra' tov ve'la tov ra'. Now this is not, this is a matter of taste. There is something I like wearing white shirts. That's for me, that's tov. For somebody else, that's ra'. Okay, but watch what, that's simple. Samim hoshech la'or, but they don't just stop at opinions of what's tasty versus what's not tasty. They say that darkness is light, ve'or lahoshech, and light is darkness. Samim mar lematok, right? Some of the Mefarshim say something that's bitter, like poison, they say is sweet, and something that's sweet is bitter. These are cultural norms that affect the simple truths of what's good and bad. Woe is to a people, to a community of people that allow the simple things like dark and light to be redefined. And what I'm alluding to over here is a problem that is plaguing us, whether we know the word or not. I've seen it in the last 10 years. Hachamim in Israel have started talking about this. And this is what's called the postmodern problem. The postmodern problem is that today there is no truth. That's what they say. There's no truth. That all of the rules of logic and all of the rules of normal definitions of categories are now ripped to shreds. To where people could say, I don't know what evil is anymore. The postmodern problem is our problem that we live today. It's no longer a modern problem, it's a postmodern problem. We're fighting against it. Our truth is we have a Torah, we have Nebi'im, we have Masoret, we have Mishnah, Talmud, Shulchan Aruch, Harambam, and all the Hachamim. That is our truth. We will not allow the culture of the world, the postmodern problem, in order to tell us and convince us Jewish people that there are no longer any truths. We believe in the Torah. We believe that God wrote it. We believe He gave it to us. My grandfather's grandfather got it. But what's plaguing our society today is the question. Maybe he's right. These people, in number 4, they say that what's good is bad. What's bad is good. What's dark is light. What's sweet is sour. Celeste, you had a question?
Yeah, I want you to give examples of the postmodern problem of the opposites, of how the kids in this generation are experiencing opposites.
It's not only opposites. There's no categories any longer. Families, nation states, simple definitions of evil, good versus evil.
Because like if you say it like it's postmodern, it's hard to recognize it if you're not gonna.
I don't want to turn this into if I give you examples that I'm thinking of, it's going to turn this into a completely other type of conversation. For instance, whether a nation, right, there's a whole thing with Brexit right now, okay, and I've been thinking about it a lot in terms of how it reflects upon my appreciation of my nation. Should we leave or should we go or should we stay, right, England? Is a nation allowed to have its own language, its own currency, its own constitution, pride in who they are from time immemorial, right? And be comfortable and respected for making that choice? Or do they have to reduce all the things that make themselves different and be absorbed into the culture of the masses? That's one thing. It's a postmodern problem. Number 5. Hoy hachamim be'ainehem v'neged penehem nechonim. Woe is to the people who are hachamim in whose eyes? In their own eyes. V'neged penehem nevunim. And when they look in the mirror, they're the nevunim. This is the arrogance. The arrogance that has been, right, that we see of when I go to my doctor and he has to have a mug on his shelf. Don't mistake Google for my medical degree. It's a joke, but it's true. How many of us go on WebMD before we go to the doctor and say, "Oh, I'm going to figure this out, and I'm going to go to confirmation bias, right? I'm going to go to my doctor and say, isn't it this?" And he's like, "No, you have no clue." I love that mug. I'll give my doctor a plug, Dr. Kasky. The arrogance of people who believe that they have the answers only in themselves, and they don't talk to their parents, they don't talk to their grandparents, they don't talk to their rabbis, they don't talk to leaders. The reason why I loved the previous panel was because these were men who I looked up to. I think 6 to 10, 15 years older than me. When I was growing up, they were the guys to turn to and say, wow, I love this because this is a group of men that's passing along with technology their traditions that they got from their grandfathers. And I'm just a little bit more removed from them. You're a little bit more removed from me. But we recognize that we don't have the answers in our own brains. Because our own brains, our own conclusions of our own mind, this is the class I gave last year in Yesha'yahu at Elberon, the conclusions of our own mind always must be suspect. Because the conclusions of our own mind are generated by our emotions. And those emotions are generated by the cultures around us. And it goes back to number 4. So we have a problem. You must always be suspicious of the conclusions of your own mind. You have a good friend that you trust, you have a spouse that you trust, you have parents that you trust, you have a rabbi that you trust, go to them and check the conclusions of your own mind. Don't think that you could correctly conclude the path all the time. Number 6. And I'll finish with this. Hoy giburim l'shtot yain. This goes back to leadership. Woe is to the strong people of the community that are drinking wine. And the strong men that are playing around with beer. What are they doing playing around with beer? Because they're not thinking clearly, because their perception is misaligned with what they're supposed to be doing. Instead of going to the party, what should they be working on? The problems of the community. And this goes back to the leadership. Does the leadership really feel the pain of the people? Are the leaders engaged with the people? Are they working on formulas to solve the people's problem? No. They're drinking wine and beer. Let's reflect back. Mesilat Yesharim and stumbling through darkness. I don't know what the darkness that pervades what's going on now. Yud Zayin B'Tammuz that Yesha'yahu was talking about was ignorant or negligence. It could be a combination of both. Some of them are more ignorant, some of them are more negligent. Are we falling into the same problem? Are we not learning lessons from the past? Are we finding ourselves so many things to keep busy with that we don't look at the simple things in life, at the works of God, and learn an appreciation? Are we becoming habitual sinners where it's been so regular, it's been so normalized that the strand, that the cord that connects me to my sins becomes so thick that I can't cut it anymore? Are we only turning inward for our answers instead of turning outward for advice? I don't know. But I know that when I read this personally, this inspires me not to make the same mistakes that they did in the times of Yesha'yahu that led to the destruction. I hope that you do too. Use this text to inspire you to not to make the same mistakes. And I hope that you find an anchor and a purpose in your life. And that anchor, I believe, is the Torah. I believe it's Timidiyut with learning Torah. And I believe that that anchor, if you have that anchor, you will know why you get up in the morning and why you go sleep at night, and everything in between will be with purpose and with mindfulness. I hope to see you next year in Yerushalayim.
Amen.